Very warm welcome to everyone who is joining us. Thanks so much for being here today. My name is Mark Morley, and I'm delighted to be hosting another webinar for the Good Governance Academy. As people continue to join, I'll share some Zoom tips for those not familiar with this platform. If you can't see the control panel at the bottom of your screen, please press the Alt key on your keyboard. That will give you access to the chat box, the question box, and the reaction buttons. Please feel free to applaud or hit the thumbs up whenever you hear something that resonates with you. If you have any questions during the event, please pop these in the question box, not in the chat box, and I'll ask these during the session or maybe at the end. Please don't use the chat box because it will get lost amongst the comments, so it is important that we see those questions. You can, however, use the chat box to let us know where you're from. It's always nice to see the wonderfully diverse audience, and we particularly appreciate those of you who are joining us very early on or very late in your day. So thank you for being here. For those who are not familiar with the Good Governance Academy, we're a non-profit organization that was established by Professor Mervyn King back in 2019. We collaborate with organizations all around the world to educate and empower leaders from all types of organizations, large, small, private and public, and everywhere in between. We run regular webinars to raise awareness of issues that matter. And if you'd like to see what we have coming up, please head over to our events page, which we'll share a link to in the chat window below. I'd also encourage you to join our mailing list, follow us on LinkedIn, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to ensure you'd never miss out. In addition to the webinars, we host colloquia twice a year. Our 13th event, looking at optimizing governance, was held on the 15th of May, and you can see a recording of that on our YouTube channel. We also run showcase events to promote courses which the Academy has endorsed. The endorsement program is available to any organization and involves a robust assessment to ensure the highest standards are maintained. The courses we endorse are those which address a broad range of governance-based topics and provide users with current and relevant content. Our next showcase will feature a course from the Barnard Institute in Canada, which is a responsible AI program for boards and the C-suite. So as I can see, we've got most people in now, although we are still getting more in. I'll go on to today's webinar, and I'm delighted to be joined by Professor Sezer Bozkus, who sits on our GGA Research Forum, Dr Rainer Lenz, an internal audit thought leader and author of the Gardener of the Governance book, and Carey, a respected governance strategist and advisor. In today's conversation, we'll explore how cultivating good governance is less about control and more about care, about planting those seeds, nurturing culture, and weeding out dysfunction. Whether you're on a board, an executive leader, or a governance professional, today's discussion will inspire thoughtful, sustainable approach to your role, I hope, as a steward of trust and purpose. So firstly, thanks for everyone for joining today. It's a real pleasure for me to be a part of this. Sezer, can I hand over to you for an introduction to today's topic, and then we can hand over to Rainer and Carey to lead us through it.
Yes, thank you very much for a very good introduction. And this is Associate Professor Sezer Bozkus Kahyaoglu from İzmir, Turkey. And we are so excited to welcome very special guest speakers today. And if you let me, I would like to start from the ladies and Carey Blakeman. And Carey leads strategic initiatives to shape corporate governance policies and promote the value of internal auditing globally. And Carey works to ensure that internal auditors are positioned as trusted advisors, which is quite important, and in governance frameworks worldwide by engaging with many industrial aspects, including boards, audit committees, NGOs, regulators, and different business groups. And in this session, we have Dr. Rainer Lenz, and finance and corporate audit executive with over 30 years of international experience in global organizations. And Dr. holds a PhD in economics and management science from a prestigious university, Leuven School of Management in Belgium. And he is recognized for thought leadership with multiple industry awards. And Rainer serves as an independent board member and as a university lecturer specialized in corporate governance and internal auditing. And I would like to mention the very special book, and we will be discussing about this book and the details and the facts and figures about contribution to the profession. And floors will be yours. And starting from Dr. Lenz, and then we can start from telling the background information about how come we read this valuable book, and you can give us some clues about the steps approaching to this top level. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Sezer. Thank you, Mark, for your warm welcome and introduction. I would though pass the first word to Carey, who made the effort to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, after a nice run in the woods, to say something on behalf of Carey and the global IIA. So before I start my little contribution, maybe Carey, you want to address something to the audience,
Yes, thank you, Rainer. To all listening in, I did not go on a run this morning, but it is very early in Washington, D.C., where I'm located. I'm so thrilled to be here. So I would like to thank the Good Governance Academy for welcoming me, and Sezer as well. The Institute of Internal Auditors is a partner with GGA, and especially with the Global Internal Audit Standards, which we will talk some about today. Those went into effect in January 2025, and we are so excited to be partners so that we can really uphold the governance aspect that is within the standards to really add value to the board and to governance structures to show the value of internal audit. And so as someone who arranges flowers as a hobby here in Washington, D.C., I really love this analogy. So I'm excited to talk more about it, just thinking through that lens of cultivating and stewarding where we work and how we can help the organizations that we work for. So thank you again for inviting me to be here.
Excellent. So thank you. So let me say a few things before we go open for a chat. Unfortunately, we have a fireside chat with no fireside, but there should be some fire around. We have no drinks either, but you care for yourself. Let me start that way. I mean, and I thank some on the audience who helped me on that journey. So Kato Plan is around, and Barry Inslee might have joined, my co-author. Also Thomas Brown, I saw on the call. So also Anthony Pugliese, by the way, was early involved with that idea. So the whole thing started when I was invited to give a speech at the 70th anniversary of the IIA Nordics. And Professor Kim Jeppesen asked me, Rainer, can you say a few words about the future of internal auditing? Now, what would you say about that? So I came up with the 5 Ps and the garden of governance. Now, thinking continues. So we keep challenging ourselves, and our ideas keep evolving. So right now, I would like to, share those, 3, 5, 6 words with you: guardians and the garden of governance. That's what I want to talk about today. It's team play. It's stronger together, a joint effort. And you mentioned, Mark, Professor Mervyn King, whom I had the pleasure and honor to meet last October in Johannesburg. He's a living legend. He's the godfather of governance. And he coined that term, guardians of governance. So words have meaning. Words matter. And I like his way of talking about guardians of governance. And he's talking about that in the following manner. He clearly sees any company as incapacitated. It's an empty shell. So the intellect, the mind, the soul, the conscience comes in that company via senior executives and the board. So if something goes deadly wrong, those are the ones you have to look at. If something goes fine, those are the ones you have to look at. They take decisions. It's like when you have an orphan, the guardian takes decision on behalf of the orphan. So we internal auditors, we should, in my view, take a more humbler positioning. It's team play. So that's why I came up with the gardener of governance. And I think governance is a beautiful umbrella term. So ESG in a way is an unfortunate acronym. It should be spelled GES, governance first. It's a prerequisite for the rest, or small e, small s, capital G. It's like Cadbury defined this 1922. It's how a company is directed and controlled. So very broad. So I like internal auditors to address important matters. But how to do that? Here, I think the gardener metaphor is helpful. We are not the CEO. We work indirectly. You can't pull grass to make it grow faster. It's we watch the circumstances. We go to places, and we have the privilege to get an on-site view how things are happening. And as you know, people have multiple hats on. People have multiple faces. And the board often only sees the board face. And we can show a shop floor face. But there's a beautiful symbiosis between guardians, executives, boards, and the gardener of governance, internal auditors. Now, that's not mainstream, but I get some more fans over there. This article was translated into 25 languages. Sezer translated, I think, a handful of them. There are thousands and thousands of reads. So the idea gets momentum. So, and let's call this the school of Lenz, Enslin, the school of Lenz, Jeppersen. It's one thought stream, you know. Others talk about it differently. They call auditors guardians of governance. I talk a different language. Now, let me bring it one level up. Our profession has an issue with legitimacy, identity. So who are we? You know, how can we contribute? External audit is legally mandated with a clear focus. You know, P&L balance sheet disclosure is what you have. Internal audit is contractually mandated. So we are an employee typically of a given company, and we are called internal auditors, so we serve internal purposes. So what's our role? What's our position? That's hazy. That's enigmatic. And the 28-word-long purpose statement of the IIA and the new standards is helpful in a way, but nobody can cite it. And I've spoken with hundreds of auditors. You can't. So we have to. I think we would be good to have an idea, a positive idea, to associate something, you know, creative, positive with it to an audit, not something like audit fatigue or nerds or something. So that's why the garden of governance opens, you know, an ocean of possibilities. And to assess the beauty of such an idea, there's a success formula created by two Americans, Heath and Heath, and they came up with this formula to assess whether an idea has the potential to stick or whether it might die. And success stands for, is it simple? S, simple. Is it U, unexpected? Is it Z, concrete? C, credible? Is it E, emotional? And S, does it invite for storytelling? And I think the global IIA would benefit from a creative, positive metaphor, like the garden of governance, to help us knowing our position and playing our position. Again, boardroom face, shop floor face. I mentioned yesterday while in Rome, also if you think of a baseball team or football team, usually you have stars on the team, you know, the Messis, the Ronaldos in football. Not sure which sport you guys prefer. But then you have a team of 11 on the football pitch, and there are other important players, but they don't shine that much. But they're doing a super important job on the pitch, you know. I think that's internal audit. So we can also be on the pitch, get our hands dirty. So we can do stuff, help a company flourishing, you know, growing, performing, and of course help preventing governance failures. Now, I might talk a bit too much, but I want to give some, you know, fire to the debate. Get some beef, you know, in this round, and let's challenge some legacy pillars of our profession. And if you look at our purpose statement, I will pick on a few of those. Let's start with one, objectivity, one of my favorites. I don't think we do ourselves a favor to claim us to be objective. First, we are full of biases. So I love my book, by the way, you can buy it. It's on sale, I'm obviously biased. We all are biased. Objectivity only exists in mundane matters, only exists when you talk simple stuff or complicated stuff. When things get complex, chaotic, there is no objectivity. I mentioned yesterday in that meeting with professional peers, when a pair has a debate, who is right? The man, the wife, both, you have to talk to both sides to find out the truth. The truth comes in pairs, in two. So are we the truth finders? Do we own the truth? I wouldn't go down that route. And furthermore, why should we be more objective than the general counsel or the compliance officer or the risk manager? So I would replace that, for instance, by authenticity. I think we have the super opportunity to travel to places. We are on site every day. We breathe and live the organization. We know so much more than external audit. And if I want, as a CEO, to have something looked at, I would send Carey or Sezer or Mark to go to a place. I would like to hear you out, hear what you have to say, not a robot. So also in this debate of man-machine, the question becomes, what's the human contribution? So objectivity is one thing we could debate in that fire chat, where I would say we don't do ourselves a favor, we make ourselves small, talking about objectivity, because it's a myth. It doesn't exist. The world out there is VUCA, Barney, it's multifaceted, it's complex, it's dynamic, fast changing. So don't go for objectivity. Find something better, maybe authenticity. Now, next one, independence. I see where this comes from. Yes, external audit to a degree claim to be independent. Now, as an employed, member of staff, employed member of the team, how independent am I? Now, I'm 60 plus. I don't give a damn. I don't, I'm financially independent, but I think it's the wrong way to go, especially in a way that is hyper connected, fast paced. So I suggest thinking about that. Also, emancipating us from external audit. We should use different words, a different language, a different mindset to make us distinct and different from external audit. So I suggest exploring the beauty of the idea of saying interdependent, not independent, maybe de-emphasize that, but interdependent in the sense of we are sort of the spider in the net. We are networked to all levels in the organization. We know the place very well, receptionist, CEO, the boards. So we know what's going on because we travel the places. We have a particular knowledge in the house, which could serve us well to, for instance, champion an aligned assurance program. Because we are well connected, matchmakers, connectors, hinge, So we have so much to offer, but we don't bring to the party because it's often self-inflicted. The way we talk about ourselves, good at marketing, we have to find a better way of talking about what we do. Yeah. So independence. Now, another one, assurance. So I rock a bit the house here. So I advocate a more humbler positioning. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. Maybe it's just appraisal what we do. So we appraise a situation, we appraise something which has a value. And so it's more about putting a system in place, with all the stakeholders involved. And we could be the clue, the engine, the champion, the moderating this. We don't have all the answers, so we don't own the truth. So, and maybe one more piece is this 3 lines model. I mean, some argue to have more lines there. They go for 5 lines or 7 lines or 9 lines or 11 lines, It's ridiculous in my view. Again, having said, every opinion is respected. Every opinion is right. The way people think their way, it's all okay. So we don't ridicule any position. Because we display respect to any position. But I would say if we draw that model, it served this purpose at the time. And I know Professor Root, who was involved back then, and the European IIA was involved. It has its beauty, it's simple, but also in modern football, lines get blurry. I mean, in the old days when I played football, there was a defender. No, he couldn't get the ball straight. He was in the back, didn't move forward. I was a striker. I had to score the goals. But in modern football, a defender is all over the place. Midfield is on attack, so it's much more fluid. So the world has moved on. So if we design our model from scratch, I don't think the 3 lines model would make it. So I rather think of a blossom. It is in the book with Barry and Sleen, who's hopefully on the call. Just a blossom. We connect the dots. We could also assume different roles in the house. We're not stuck to our 3rd line. We're not in a certain box. So we bring our real you to the company. So if Mark Morley was the moderator in the house, I want to have the full Mark Morley on my team, the full Sezer, the full Carey on my team, and not just a fraction of that person which he or she associates with internal audit. So if a company has something to do with ESG or working capital or something you guys are competent as internal auditors, bring it to the party, make it shine, show it, and start doing something. So that's why beyond, say, assurance or appraisal and consulting and advisory, we can do stuff. We can be more valuable to an organization. And that real you, that's what I suggest people to bring more to the foreground. That real you, that authentic role is something where we can do much more. Now, let me close by those triangles. We talk much about the fraud triangle. You all know that, I guess, with opportunity and motivation and self-realization. But, wanting to be the trusted advisor, we should talk much more about the trust triangle. And the trust triangle has the components of authenticity, empathy, and logic. So I think our particular value could be authenticity and empathy. Logic is a given, I would say. Now, let me close by cycling back to the starting point of guardians and the garden of governance. I think that's a beautiful metaphor in my mind to join forces with the board and top management, them being guardians, taking decisions, watching the orphan, and making sure the company is flourishing. But we have a particular perspective from, say, the grassroots, from the bottom up, it's top-down, bottom-up perspective as a gardener. And that symbiosis could be a beautiful way of positioning internal audit in the corporate governance ecosystem. Now, I certainly spoke far too long, but I promise you that's it for my side for a while now. There's no slide to show. If I was around, I would get me a drink now and would open up for questions. And I know that my co-author, I think Barry Ensign, is on the call. So if you have a question to the book, I hope Barry can contribute. Also, Kato Plant is on the call, I guess. And there's something nice, by the way, Carey.
Can I just ask? So I see that we do have some questions, and I can bring those up. But just myself, there are a certain group of people within an organization that believe they are responsible for governance. And typically they don't even really understand governance. But then there's a lot of people within the organization that don't consider they are responsible for governance. Even as we've just explained, the more people that feel involved and feel part of these things, the better an organization is going to work. So I wondered whether that was something that was in your mind when you wrote the book and titled the book as Gardener, the use of that metaphor. Were you trying to bring more people into the fold, to try and show that governance is for a wider range of people? Is that something you were thinking about?
Yeah, the way I look at, thanks for your question, Mark, of course. The way I look at governance, this is the umbrella term. That's the overarching subject. So in my mind, the house of governance looks as follows. On the top floor, I picture performance. So I wrote a big P there. Any organization has performance ambitions. You exist for a reason. For a reason, also financial terms, for revenue, EBIT, profitability, cash flow. But you have a business, so your performance matters. So it's all interlinked: performance, internal controls, compliance. But in that house of governance, on the middle floor, I have risk, as risk management, with rooms for all the risks you can think of, including strategic, operational, finance, compliance, environmental, social, legal, technical, what you have. That's all on this. And on the bottom, I call that bottom ABC, attitude, behavior, culture. That's where we internal auditors can have a super role because we are on site. So I can see Sezer working in her context in Izmir. I can see how things are, working together. So I can see the shop floor face of top managers. I can see how they're performing on site. That's a particular perspective. So I think governance, in my understanding, the capital definition, how organizations are directed and controlled is a very broad term. So good governance is something that makes or breaks companies. So I think governance is the core of it. And I think that's where I want to see into an audit contributing. Now, we're not the guardian. We're not making the call. We're not taking decisions. That's why I prefer gardener to guardian. Let me maybe say one more thing. When I first explored that topic together with my doctoral mentor, Carey and the co-author who did his PhD about combined assurance, Loic at the time, we studied the self-images of internal auditors. And we wrote an article in 2016. How do they talk about themselves? And we came up with it. We learned that many use very bullish words, view them as Superman or superhero, or view them as doctors, to fix what's broken with you, Mark, or have consultant kind of buzzword language, And we realized that the trusted advisor, or at the time we called farmer, it's a much softer positioning. And you get further with that softer positioning in the organization because we are not the CEO. So we are not making the call. We have no formal mandate. We are influential through our intelligence, charm, our arguments, our way of operating. So don't be an asshole, for instance, is a good starting point, So what I'm saying is internal audit has often the issue, and from my understanding, we overpromise and we don't know our position well in the corporate governance ecosystem. Hopefully this is anywhere close to an answer to your question.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. And just from my own perspective, I mean, it's been a while now, but in my previous life, when I was in finance, it's always seemed that the engagements with the auditors, it was always looking backwards. And I always wish that they would be looking forwards, come to the party with ideas and suggestions rather than kind of, what's this and why is this? I wondered actually from Carey, is this something that the internal audit profession is trying to do, is to be more forward looking and getting more involved in governance, in the steering of the ship?
Yes, it is something that we're trying to do. To a lot of the points brought up by Rainer, and from your experience, Mark, I hear that a lot. And in my time as an external and internal auditor, before I came to work at the IIA, it was very similar. So at least here in the United States, it is still very backwards looking. It is something that the IIA is very much aware of. And I know many of you have been involved directly or know about our Vision 2035 research, which some of it aligns to our gardener analogy and some of it may not as much. But again, that's why we're having this chat. But I'll put a link in it. But we really want to see the profession come together to a lot of these points and be forward looking. Yesterday, I did another webcast about adding value to when you come meet with an audit committee and what does that look like? And yes, a lot of times internal auditors are showing detailed findings that happened, months ago. And the audit committee, they're crunched for time. They don't have time to hear about all of that. They want to hear about what are the risks coming up, especially to the points, Rainer, that you brought up about I don't like spiders, but that will now stick in my head, that thought about being in the web and we're the center and we can see everything connected. So I like that, even though I'm afraid of spiders. But yes, so it is something that we're very aware of and we are seeing some changes, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
If you may chip in, Mark, if you thoughts from my side. Of course, you can easily test the waters or do a litmus test. If your internal audit function only meets the audit committee for 5 minutes a year, that's worth very little. So the indicators for an effective internal audit job are, in my view, having a shared vision. So what are you supposed to do? Having a shared knowledge. So knowing what's going on. And ideally, you have board stature, you have board exposure, you ask the questions the board would ask if you travel to a place because you serve the board ultimately. And there's respect for your role, but you have to earn that, I guess. And the communication pattern is super important. So if you communicate frequently, timely, but always problem-solving minded. Now, one more thought on this Vision 2035 report, which is a nice piece of work. Anthony said we must transform now or risk becoming irrelevant by 2035. 2035, by the way, might become sooner than we think, because ChatGPT is catching up rapidly. So I think time is right to clarify who we are, what's our position, how do we want to play the position. Now, in statistics, they talked about 3 types there. And if you those who followed my publications also heard me talking about 3 types. I called them bystander, swimmer, and surfer. In the report, we call them in a bit more polished way, So it's called it's the poorest. So 1/3 of our oilers are poorest. I would call them bystanders. Limited value, maybe 0 value. It's a waste. Then you have the swimmers. I call them swimmers in the sense of having their plan, doing their agenda, and in stable water, it's doing okay. Pragmatic, half of the population. We only have 9% proactive. So 1/10 only of our internal audit faculties out there are what I call surfers. So who can navigate in the uncertain, who can navigate in this chaotic and complex world out there. That's what we need more of. So we have a shared interest, but how to get more of that? Not by using bullish words, I think, but by knowing what's going on, by connecting well with all stakeholders, by serving the board, by serving external auditors, and the more you know, the better you can serve. So if you had a stupid internal auditor, his or her appraisal is worth nothing. So when I ask someone, and that's a competent person, well networked, a smart individual, that appraisal, that judgment, that gets far. So we have to, know our business, know what we do, but the profession has, of course, challenges. And this is not new, Carey, by the way. I'm the oldest guy in the room, I suppose. So I heard them saying that 15 years ago. So what do we do differently? That's the question. To prevent the same language reoccurring 10 years down the road. So we have to change, I think, the way we look at ourselves and the way we do things. So that's why I challenge our legacy wisdom, objectivity, question mark, independence, question mark. That's quite a mouthful, I would suppose, So any views on that?
The one I'm struggling with is the independence. I like I like the view, but as someone who learned a lot about Enron and is still researching it because of things happening around the world, I wonder, Rainer, what your thoughts are on how this relates to regulation, because I find in my role that sometimes we have to go to regulators and use that word independence because when these things happen, it's because people were not independent in the way that they were too connected. And to your point about us being humans, bad stuff happened. And so I'm wondering if there is another word, not necessarily interdependence, but something along those lines that still says internal auditors should have enough of a separation. And then I saw Cato's note about ethics and bringing ethics into this. So I wonder what your thoughts are about that, because the regulation piece is where I'm kind of thinking a lot about.
Absolutely. So I'm not advocating to throw this term over the cliffs, but I was just de-emphasizing it or also clarifying it. I think the paradox is we internal auditors are never involved. And if you think at the end, independence shouldn't be isolation, but you're not part of this, but you should know everything. That's a paradox, So how to resolve this? I would say the more we know, the better. The more we get engaged, the better. The more, connected we are, the better. At the same time, if shit hits the fan, if you come across something ugly, we are grown-ups, we are independent to call a spade a spade. This is not, a conflict. But I would rather see internal auditors, being well connected, and it's getting crazy. I mean, I think we've been gone a bridge too far with independence. In a way, it's ridiculous in my mind, in a way, because if you ask an internal auditor, can you do this or that, and then they say, no, I cannot because I'm independent. That's ridiculous. I mean,
Yes.
maybe do what you can do to help your company to flourish. Agree with the audit committee, of course, that's tolerated. But it's be an internal resource. It's be resourceful. That we are people who seek your advice, Carey, and come to you and say, Carey, please investigate that. Give me your perspective on this. So I understand the reasoning why we should have independent, but how to best get that? I mean, with the current perspective of being third line, I think we corner ourselves in the wrong niche. It's a difficult debate. We have this principal agent discussion, of course, but I would rather see internal auditors much more networked, a resource people go to, with the hope for help, with the hope for improvement, with the hope for, making things better. But at the same time, if something ugly happens, and Enron happened with the old model, by the way, we had Enron despite the three lines model, but Enron despite all the talk about independence, this still happened, So we don't know what happened if it was de-emphasized. I think internal auditors could play even a much better role. Knowing more now, one more sentence maybe. The role is multifaceted. So right now in this Vision 2035 report, we put a bit of difference between police and advisor. I think it's not either or. I think police is, by the way, a very noble profession. And those of you who have maybe a parent who is a policeman or have in their family network police, it's a very noble profession. We need police for a number of reasons. I mean, having police has preventive control. Having police helps you to keep. So we also have this police element in it, and we shouldn't, say no police, only advisor. It's all of that in us. And I think the garden of governance is the attempt, to bring it one level up. So you have this flourishing aspect, the beautiful bouquet of flowers, But if you have weed in your garden, Carey, you have to address it, So it has various elements to play with it, to make it a bit more accessible and give it a positive twist. And would be, by the way, in one more sense, it's the garden of governance. We are the only one. There are many guardians, but look at that. In this competition of stakeholders in this governance arena, compliance is taken by compliance. It's not our turf. There's risk management, the other faculties. So what's our core territory? What's our faculty? We could be, gardening, nurturing, strengthening governance. Governance is much more than, policies and procedures. It's the way we do things, also ethics, the worst behavior we tolerate. So ABC, attitude, behavior, culture. So to cut a long story short, I'm in this profession now since 2007. I love it. It's a great profession, much freedom, much potential. But I think there's much more we can do. So we could have a stronger voice, a stronger contribution in this corporate governance ecosystem as we presently demonstrate. And sometimes I think the standards are in the way. One more sentence. The topical requirements are worth debating because, what do we know? How stringent do you want to be? The world is fast changing. Your topical requirement from yesterday might no longer be topical tomorrow. So I would advocate to make this a recommendation, guidance, but don't force the world to comply with those topical requirements, created by someone in times where you compete with other faculties who might know more about the territory than you know. So I think let's define our territory and define what we don't address. And by the way, one last sentence. I like, of course, Richard Chambers is a trusted advisor. But this doesn't tell you in which arena you are a trusted advisor. Now, the garden of governance, to to sell my idea, tells you where to excel in the governance arena, which is a very broad focus, the House of Governance, and how to, with the gardening approach. So enough selling now, I think, So any other question out there?
Rainer, when we go the metaphor side with the gardening and farming side, after having artificial intelligence, we will have many things, either organic or, digital farming. How can you position your metaphor in this respect? And there is a question in connection to this about the, we need to audit artificial intelligence process as well. In addition to that, we should, have them as our strategic tool to give the vision, direction, whatever you say, to the management, so that we can have the right to sit at the table. So this is a joint question, either from IAA's perspective for showing us the vision for next and future, generation for our audit, people, and for Dr. Rainer to write a new book. Maybe it can be a joint one for contributing more.
Yeah.
We
Carey,
can
you want to go
also
first?
invite artificial intelligence as our, supporting tool for next publication. What do you think? Thank you.
Carey, you go first, or shall I go first?
You go, and then I'll go.
Yeah, so here's I would say, and I loved reading, by the way, two books recently, which I recommend to you. One is from Ethan Mollick. It's called Co-Intelligence, Living and Working with AI. It's a great read. And also from David A. Wood, who's a crazy author, by the way. He has an age index of 50 something. He wrote Rewiring Your Mind for AI. Now, what does all this mean for me? Number one is I have ChatGPT on my team. So I have now a new team member. ChatGPT is my team member now. It's a teammate with strengths and weaknesses. So I assume it's an it. I don't know. I haven't given a name. Some people call it Sally or something, but so it's a team member now. One thing. Now, that's a super important topic. So what's our role? When the machine can do more, man-machine. And I asked that question when I was presenting last year to audiences of hundreds of auditors with a purpose statement. So who of you can cite the purpose statement? 28 words, Carey. Nobody can. Maybe in the US some can. I don't know. But ChatGPT can do in a split second. So that's something ChatGPT can do better than humans can. Now, while thinking about that, on the one hand side, I thought it's bad news because our purpose isn't clear. On the other hand side, I thought it's good news because not knowing is a brilliant starting point sometimes. So not jumping the gun, not just having a pre-digested solution, just sit down, start with a blank sheet of paper and digest the topic, analyze the topic. I think that's auditing going forward. That's why the think model in the book also, again, it's for sale if you want to buy it. The think model starts with not knowing. And then auditing is a questioning approach. You're questioning and right questioning and audio, listening, understanding. And then only then you can start auditing. And I think that's a future model. Now, before I pass back, I want to say that what is internal auditing in essence? To me, in a sense, it's an enabler of learning and change. That fits nicely with the Garden of Governance model. And when saying that, I like to reference the theory you might have heard that from. So it has the following model. If you think of the north, south, west, east, and it's put the following labels there, start with south, do, west, see, north, think, and east, say. The four barriers to learning and change are not to see what you do, not to recognize what you see, not to say what you think, and not to do what you say. Now, we internal auditors remove the not to. Our role is to, when we go to a place, we first see and appreciate what people do. And by the way, creating is harder than judging. So we used to be good at judging, but we auditors have to create more, innovate more, do more. So that's the first thing. See what we do. Then, of course, you think that through what you see. You recognize the pattern, the root cause, the underlying, issues. So see what see what we do, think it through, recognize the pattern. And then in the report, it has my name on. The report carries my name. It's not a robot. So I then write in the report what I think is worthwhile capturing, what the guardians should know, top executives and top management. Then, of course, when I leave a place, and now look at Mark as the big MD on site, I have an agreement with him. We discuss the report in detail, and I expect Mark to follow up on the agreed items on his own account. I don't have to babysit him, he's a senior manager. So I leave the place with agreed, issues, risks discussed, a management action plan with an owner and a timeline. So summing up, enabler of learning and change. This doesn't change in the days of ChatGPT and large language models. This won't go away. But by the way, writing an article, I'm glad, Sezer, I've written my articles before ChatGPT. Because nowadays, that becomes a co-author too. So people write with ChatGPT, and you no longer know what the heck is written by the author and what the heck is written by ChatGPT. So it gets very confusing. But it's in the world now. So we internal auditors, let's invite that body to our team with its strengths and weaknesses. It's part of the team now, but so even the more we have to think about what's our contribution, what's our value add. And I think those internal audit functions who don't step up, you don't need them. They are a waste.
It's related to ethical part, because when you want to regulate, it's always slows and coming behind, It's the case for all the industries. But for ethical side, it's something necessary for the digital transformation process to make it, serving for the goodness of people and all stakeholders, including environment. So that's the sensitive issue, I believe. And thank you for contributions of Prof. Kato. And we have another question.
What's Kato asking? Kato, you certainly have a question.
Kato is contributing, I believe.
Absolutely, all the time. All the time.
Yeah. Contribute to the achievement of these outcomes as a change agent, moving beyond compliance to adding with capital real value. That's quite important. And thank you very much for your presence and listening to us. Thank you very much.
I have to thank Kato at this point, if I may. May I thank Kato? Because she gave birth to the Garden of Governance Award at the University of Pretoria. Maybe you don't know that. So there are presently 80 plus students who are studying the subject of guardians and the Garden of Governance, to critique this, Carey, to maybe appreciate it, to find their interpretation of it. So that those are the future leaders. I'm 60 plus, so I'm not part of that group. But those young students, they will challenge this now and build on it. And I look forward to their work, and I thank Kato for this beautiful idea and to initiate that the Garden of Governance Award in Pretoria. Thank you for that, Kato. And Barry is on the call also. Barry is the co-author of the book, and I must thank Barry now in public, because without him, this book would not exist. He was the driving engine behind this, not me. And we met in Luxembourg back in 2019, and somehow we connected, and he's running a company in South Africa, Pro Optima Services, and he enjoyed that metaphor back in times, Carey, the Garden of Governance, which was born in 21, and he's living it in a way. Maybe Barry has a question or comment. He's my star of the day, if I may call him that way, Barry. Hopefully you're okay with that, so.
Can I just mention, Kato put in the question box that she would like to add ethical organizational culture to the foundation of your governance house.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful
Yeah,
part
I'm
of it.
sure Institute of Internal Auditors is also supporting the ethical aspects and very sensitive and giving training programs, creating awareness. I know that
Yeah.
many publications are available in our bookstore, and we are expecting more considering this digital era. How to cope with such a competitive environment and still having the competency, digital literacy, in addition to others, and we can give some feedbacks to
Carey,
our organizations as trusted advisors. That's quite important, and in this way it's not a police situation, but creating the early warning mechanisms, which is quite necessary for digital. Carey, floor is yours.
Thank you. This week, I wanted to share an example because Rainer, as you were talking, I think it ties in nicely. One of our North American board chair, her name is Liz Sullivan. She works for the Public Transit Authority in Washington, D.C. in the area. So a public sector organization. And they are going to start testing AI and how the organization can use it safely, to lots of points that we are all aware of. And Sezer, you talked about, ethical points and environmental impact. But what I loved is she has positioned internal audit and her internal audit team to, again, be that interconnected team, that the team that wants to implement AI came to her and said, can internal audit be the test?
Super.
So they are not coming at it from that angle of we're looking backwards. They get to be on the forefront.
Excellent.
And they're doing it in a safe, controlled environment, which I am a huge, even personal advocate for. At the IIA, we use Copilot, and it is, again, in a safe environment. But I think that one of the things that I've learned over the last just even year, even though ChatGPT and others have been out for a little while now, is just testing it yourself in, again, like safe, small ways. I actually this week am using it to send to start drafting, but I will add my own personal thoughts to. I have a really complicated text message I need to send to a friend.
Okay,
And
is it? Maybe just talk to her then,
and it does, and the words it used, I was like, oh, thank you. And then anyway, I think that there are ways that you can use it to play with it and to get used to it, but then in our professional lives, really thinking through how to get at the front of that within your organization. And so I think that example from Liz and the Washington Metro Transit Authority, I loved that's happening. The piece about auditing AI, I do feel is a bit more complicated because AI, it's just a complicated situation. So I know there are many firms and experts out there who are figuring out how we can teach internal auditors how to audit what's happening. So I do encourage everyone to just keep learning. I wrote down the books you mentioned, Rainer, just for myself, because it will continue to get more complicated. And to all our points today, it's vital that we stay on top of this and use it, like you said, Rainer, as like a teammate or a partner, and not be afraid, but also we can't ignore it. It's really important.
So lovely example from Liz, who I don't know in person, but so she's doing it. She's a swimmer, to say that language. So as a swimmer, you can give advice to other swimmers. If you don't know how to swim, but you give advice to swimmers, your advice is worth nothing. And many auditors maybe audit AI, but they have never used it. That's worth very little. So I think it's very, very smart. And also you mentioned playing with it, using it, applying it. The more you know about it, the more you can also give advice to others and in a way audit it. But audit comes after understanding, after questioning it, So we have to know quite a lot before we start auditing it without annoying people with little we know. So great. But those examples are super stories to share with the community in the world. So Lee Sullivan's story about her would be a beautiful case study to learn from, Carey. So share more of those going forward. That's inspiring and a great contribution to the debate. So 5 minutes to go. For final drink. What's out there?
I had another question myself. So with using the gardening analogy, when you think of gardening, it's kind of finessing, it's being kind of a soft touch approach, it's being patient and caring. These aren't typically things, they're not really traits that you would see commonly. These are soft skills that it just seems that some people struggle with. And is this something that you would also have addressed in your book, that these kind of skills are important for people to know and should be kind of at the forefront? They're not nice to have, they're critical skills.
I think thanks for the question, Mark. I think we often call them soft skills, Mark. But I think that's mistaken. They are human skills. So listening, empathy, and all of that, this could make a huge difference, I think, especially because the robot, ChatGPT, I don't think will be as empathetic as human beings can be. So maybe that's the path to go. And I think of my career, also think of bad stuff unearthed in organizations. People told me about it. I wasn't the smart guy who found it out. People came over because they trusted me and said, look, Sezer, Carey, Mark, there's something really dodgy happening in that house. And can I tell you? And they trusted me not to disclose my source, not to misuse it. So if we listen to people, so the core to our business, audire means right listening. That's the core of what we do. That will be an asset going forward. Despite all the technology we are using. So I think those human skills are the door opener, Mark, to people's heart. It's not only about people's heads. If you come to my place and audit me, and if I don't like you, if you come across as a checker, tick the box, I give you a very hard time, Mark. You wouldn't get far, I would say. And the top managers, of course, if you audit something bad, you have to still do your job. But I think it's the human approach, the human style, combined with technology, leveraging AI and so forth. That could be a way forward. But maybe clarifying what does human mean in the context of internal auditing. So maybe let's talk less about objectivity. Let's talk about more of the human side of it, because we're not objective. Maybe it's de-emphasize that. If we can't agree on independence, Carey, maybe we can agree on objectivity. Let's de-emphasize that and bring the full Carey to work. Mark, please come in full to work. Sezer, please show the real you when you're at work. Don't show just the little finger, the fraction of you which you believe fits into the role of internal auditors. We can do more, we can do better, I think. So cut long story short, Mark, soft is human. Soft is hard. Soft matters.
Yeah, agreed.
So
I don't think we have any more questions from the audience. Plenty of comments. But are there any more questions from the panel, from Sezer, or anything else you wanted to add, Carey?
I was going to add, I put it in the chat, but I also feel very strongly about not calling soft skills. I like the word or term essential skills. We've heard about this for so long, even outside of internal audit. It really resonates with me that we are humans. We all have a lot going on, and when you do come to work, there can be that part of you that turns off, but that's not real. But how do we really hone those essential skills? I've just been thinking a lot about just gardening in my own garden in the back. And if something doesn't grow correctly, like I'm going to change it. I'm not just going to keep doing the same thing, or I am going to weed it, or I'm going to look for the little bugs that are on it and I'm going to find a way to, organically get rid of them so that they can thrive. And I think it's a really great thing for us just to think about. So I do thank you, Rainer, for that analogy. Like I really, it really resonates. So
you make my day, Carey. Having one garden of governance a day, that's very enriching. So thank you very much for your kind comments and your kind words. Nice being on that discussion forum. Thank you, Mark, for the moderating. Thank you, Sezer, for the initiative. Thank you, Carey, for all your contributions. And I look forward to our future projects. I wish the Good Governance Academy much success. And when you meet Mervyn King next time, please say hello. I'm grateful for his forward to our book, and it was just lovely meeting him in person last October.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think I'll draw today's session to a close. So thank you, Dr. Lenz and Carey, for a thought-provoking conversation today. I think it really helped remind us that governance is not a rigid system, but it's a living, evolving ecosystem. So I'd like to convey my sincere thanks to everyone who joined us today. If you found the discussion valuable, I really encourage you go and read The Gardener of Governance and reflect on your own role in tending to the soil of your organization's future. For those who missed any part of this or would like to listen again, we'll be sharing a recording on our YouTube channel as well as on our podcast channel. So thank you again for joining this webinar. We hope you enjoyed it. Keep planting with purpose, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you all.
Thank you.